What's going on, everybody? Kyle here. I hope you're having an amazing Tuesday so far. It's so good to be back in my studio, back home in Texas. As some of you may know or seen through social media, we've been traveling a bunch the last couple months. We visited 24 states, did 7,500 miles, and just got to see, everything, on the East Coast, basically. And so the family, we had a great experience, got to teach our kids a lot, and just got to visit a lot of agents that are partners of mine as well while we were on the road, visiting them in their hometowns. So that was a lot of fun as well. But now we're back here and ready to be back to my normal routines and Tuesday live streams. I've had a lot of people reaching out and saying, hey, when's the live stream starting back up, and asking what's going on. So here we are, and back. But today we're going to be covering a topic about reaching $1 million in revenue in your real estate business, with really mostly focusing on four things. And so I'm going to break down those four things. I'm going to break down even just like what that means. Like if you hear about, $1 million in revenue or $1 million in GCI, like sometimes that might sound like so far out there and so like, oh, like what does that even mean? I'll break it down because it's really, it's just a numbers game, and I'll kind of show what that might translate to, as far as what your take home could or should be from that income. And so, yeah, so that's pretty much what we're going to cover today. I've actually got a guest that is supposed to be joining here in a little while. I'm actually going to send him the link again. Let me copy and send this over to him. Let me see. And so, yeah, so we're going to kind of get a couple perspectives, hopefully, for it. And let me see here. I get the invite link here. All right. But yeah, and if you guys, as always, have any questions, whether you're brand new and you're like, oh my gosh, how do I even get started? Or maybe you have done 20 transactions or 15 transactions this last year, and you want to, level up, and you want to get to where you're doing $500,000 in GCI or $1 million in GCI. All of this stuff is going to be very relevant. So like, even if you're not yet quite to where you haven't even done your first deal, don't tune out, because what we're going to talk about here is, yes, how you can get to $1 million, but all the steps that it takes between becoming, being brand new to getting to that point. And so, anyways, let's go ahead and just dive right in, and we'll get started with the topic. So first off, the thing that I kind of want to talk a little bit about on $1 million in GCI is like what that is. Like, what does that mean, right? So first off, revenue and GCI, in my opinion, when we're talking about like sales, real estate sales commission business, is one and the same, right? So if we say revenue, that's like your top line, okay? If we talk about profit, that's what you actually take home after your expenses. But what we're going to be covering in this video is revenue. So just basically $1 million in commissions. And so the reason why I say revenue as well is because, in our real estate sales business, that's the primary driver of our income. I mean, if you are, with a company that you also make additional streams of income, or maybe you have some other businesses that you make additional streams of income, that's fantastic. But what we're talking about right now is basically just $1 million in revenue from your real estate sales business, which again is primarily going to come from your gross commission income. So if we say $1 million in gross commission income, that's kind of the same thing, right? But what that looks like, from my experience in my business, we all, the majority of as real estate agents, we know that, on average, our commission amount is about 3%, right? Some areas of the country, it's usually maybe 2.5%, or maybe you're doing something different where you're getting 2%. But on average, the going rate, this isn't what you always get, is about 3%. I can say from experience that, even though the going rate where I'm at in Texas is 3%, that if I look at all of my transactions that I've ever done, it actually boiled out to about 2.6% as far as what I would get on all of my transactions. That includes like discounting, things. If I've got somebody doing like a move up program where, I'm listing the house, and then I'm also helping them on the buy side, I would usually help them out a little bit more. And So, on average though, I'd have about 2.6% for all my commissions. So if we're talking about $1 million in GCI, what that's going to equate to, if my math serves me right, is about $26 million in volume. So if we took, $1 million, let me make sure I don't want to say anything wrong, divide that by 0.026. Yeah, there we go here. Oh, yeah, hey, you know what? Blake is on the line here. Let me go ahead. I got my good buddy Blake here. Let's add you to the stream. How you doing, Blake?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I am doing awesome, man. It's good to see you. How's your morning going? I know you got a lot going on at your house today, so I appreciate you jumping on.
Yeah, man. Busy things. I got my guy Jackson right here. He's joining with us. So if you hear my
What's up, Jack?
trooper, he's over here with me.
Oh, good to see you. Good to see you. Well, real quick. So let me introduce Blake to the live stream real quick. So Blake is one of my partner agents. Blake, has been actually a friend of mine since high school. We've known each other for forever now, and stayed in touch. And obviously, I know you were also a former teacher, former educator in.
Yep.
I wouldn't even say your past life because it wasn't even that long ago. And most recently has transferred into full-time real estate and has been absolutely crushing it in the Charleston, South Carolina market. And so now I get the pleasure of kind of bringing him on as just kind of my sidekick to make sure that I don't forget anything or that I don't leave anything out, because Blake is still very highly in production. And so I definitely want to get your perspective from the active agent's perspective. And so that being said, Blake, go ahead and real quick introduce yourself. If I left anything out about you and your real estate business.
That was a great introduction. Thank you. So my name is Blake Sammons, and I'm originally from San Antonio, Texas. That's where Kyle and I went to high school together. And then, my wife and I, she was in the Army, and we kind of traveled around the country, and we decided that we wanted to pick somewhere neutral. And so we searched for a lot of cities, and we decided that Charleston was the place for us. So we put down roots, and I changed careers from education. I was a teacher for about 10 years, and then I made a transition into real estate and found that I can still utilize all of my educational experience to really kind of treat clients and fellow realtors the same way. And I find that it works really well. So as far as my business goes, my business is called Aloha Charleston, and I really pride myself on providing a educational experience, obviously because I'm a teacher, but I had a lot of success with my students because I utilized a lot of humor and I was very authentically just me. And so I try to carry that over into my real estate business. And with that being said, I pride myself in providing a very educational, fun, and stress-free experience to my clients. He loves it. He understands it. I have a lot of success from that just because people, I think, pick up on the fact that this is just me. I'm a dad of 4. As you can see, this is what I do. I sell houses, and sometimes my kids comes with me, and tell you what, I have a lot of luck. Both my girls have now sold a house, and they will tell people that I've sold a house, and I'm like, that's my girl.
I love it. I love it. Well, thanks for jumping in, Blake. And, definitely I want this to be kind of a dialogue between you and me both. So it's not just me talking and whatnot. Like if there's things you want to chime in on, chime in.
Definitely. If I mute myself, it's because I'm, tending.
I totally get it, man. So very cool. But yeah, and real quick, so going back to the million in GCI, what that equates to in transaction volume, so I wanted to double check my math, and I'm glad that I did, because just to give you a roundabout estimate, so if you're doing $1 million in GCI at my average, if you're averaging about 2.6% for your commission, that's about $38 million in volume. Okay. So it's not 26. I don't know where I was thinking, but it's $38 million in volume, roughly, give or take. And so obviously if you're getting more than 2.6% on your average transactions, then it's going to be less volume that you have to do. You might not need to do 38 million. If you are getting less than 2.6, you may have to get more volume. And so once we break down volume, and guys, you can do this with whatever goal you want to hit. So I just did this for $1 million in GCI, but if you wanted to do $500,000 in GCI, I'm going to show you real quick how you can, how you can figure this out. So let me share my screen real quick. There we go. Let's go ahead and add that to the stream. There we go. So basically all you have to do to kind of figure this number out. Oh, I don't even know if I can make this calculator bigger. Nope, doesn't look like it can. All right, you're going to take $1 million, right? Like if that's your number, we're going to divide it by whatever your average commission rate is. So if I said, mine is 2.6%, then you're going to go 0.026, right? So I took $1 million, I divided it by that, and that gets me to $38 million. It's really hard to see what that is there, but you can see 38 million. So obviously, if I did the same thing with 500,000, it'd be about 19 million right there. But if you wanted to do it at 3% or 2%, it would be that same equation, right? So $38 million in volume is what it would come out for this particular scenario. And the reason that's important to know is now once you know the volume that it's going to take, you can divide that by your average commission or your average sales price in your area, right? So like I know in San Antonio that, for me in particular, my average sales price, which is typically a little bit higher than the city's average sales price, it's roughly around $323,000. All right, I was looking at my numbers just a second ago. So if I divided this by 323,000, right, it tells me that I need to do roughly about 119 transactions to hit that that transaction volume to hit that GCI amount, right? So we just got to reverse engineer this whole process, right? Like, because a lot of times, maybe your goal is 100,000 or 200,000. One of the first things you got to do is you got to make it realistic, like a number in your head that's attainable, like by actually associating how many homes that's going to take for you to do it. And then from there, you can do all sorts of stuff. You can make crazy visuals where like you print out houses and you check them off, or, but at least it gets a lot more fun to really, go after that goal. And so anyways, so that's kind of the numbers there. Blake, does that, have you ever done this exercise, or, have you sort of seen it presented this way?
I have, yeah, I've done that the exercise before, all the way down, from your potential pay from that year, your commission, all the way down to how many phone calls it means that you need to make.
Yep.
And so it can be a bit daunting at first, and then you're like, oh, okay, all right. So, but I think it's always, like you said, it's good to have that goal, and as well as it's good to kind of push yourself to something bigger. But I think it also gives you the opportunity to be very realistic about like a few things. So for me personally, I have like a this is my like kind of like a low, medium, high. So I have like a high goal, like this is where I'm pushing myself to get to. And if I don't hit that, I have a medium goal of like, this is where my goal is, where I feel like my bread and butter. And then I have like, this is a must have.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do that in a sense, not to give myself grace, but more or less to give myself a super high goal, an average goal, and then a must. This is a must, like the must pass line, or I'm trying to think of the craps table, like the don't come line or whatever.
Yep.
Like this is definitely the line. So for me, that's kind of how I set it up, and it works well for me. So
yeah, absolutely. I'm the same way, man. I basically, I know, like, whenever I set my goals for the year, it's like I basically put out like what my goal is, like just an average goal. Like this is what I expect it to be goal. And then I have my, like, I'm going to shoot for not even shoot for the moon goal, but I have like if I crush everything, and things go as planned or better, then this is what is potential, as like, that's kind of the top goal. And then I have like, man, if the market takes a turn for the worse, if things are unforeseen, and like, and I don't even hit my goal that I think that I should hit, this would be like the bare minimum of what I, expect out of myself, no matter what, like come hell or high water. Right. So it's like,
right.
Yeah, I do the exact same. I think it's a good practice to have in your business. And so, real quick, Elizabeth is asking if I would mind going over that formula again. Yeah, sure. No problem. I'll do it real quick. Elizabeth.
Try hitting that little green button on the calculator, see if that it might make it very full screen.
Let's see. Okay. Let's see. Share screen. Desktop 2. Hit the. Oh yeah. Here we go. Oh, nope. It just made it. Well, it's a little bit bigger.
Hey, it's a little bit bigger. I can see the number better. Yeah.
All right. So if we did, let's go ahead and let's do it for $1 million, right? Again. So we have $1 million in there. And then we divide that by whatever you believe your average commission rate to be, right? So I know mine through experience is about 2.6% across all of my transactions that I've done. So I divide that by 0.026, okay, 2.6, just like that. And that comes out to $38 million in volume as to what I would need. And then from there, I can take that number and divide that by what my average sales price is for either, and if you're a new agent, then just put what the average sales price is for your market, or maybe even a little less, because when I was a new agent, my personal average sales price was not quite what the average sales price was for the market. Because typically you might just be working a lot of buyers, first time home buyers. But as you get more seasoned in your career, you'll find you're getting more move up buyers, people that, you've come across that are high net worth or whatever, that bring your average up. But usually in the beginning, you might not even be at the average for your area. So just kind of go off of what you expect it to be. To the best of your ability. But so from here, 38 million, I would divide that by my average sales price, which again was $323,000. And that puts me at 119 transactions. So let's just roughly say 120 transactions for the year to be able to hit that GCI amount, right? And so now based on 119, or let's just say 120, here's a couple other things that I feel like we can kind of dissect and talk about. So once we know that I need to do 120 transactions, now I got to start thinking like strategically, like how am I going to hit 120 transactions? I know for a fact I'm not going to hit it by myself. Like, the best agents, like, some of the, I don't want to say the best, but the ones that work the hardest, in my opinion, even with leverage and having, some help, transaction management work and stuff, are doing like 70 to 80 transactions a year. And that's like busting butt, right? To like do that many as an individual agent, like with no buyer agents, nothing. You can do it. It's very difficult though. And, so that'd be like the max. So there's, in my opinion, no way that at my average price point, I could do 120 transactions myself in a single year. Now, obviously, if you're in, some place where average commission amounts are higher, average sales prices are higher, you're in New York City, you're in, LA or, Miami or something. And, there's a lot of agents that can do $1 million in GCI as an individual agent with just maybe like a small mini team or something like that. But that's kind of, the rare occasion. So I would say, most times you're going to need some pretty good team support, right? And so let's talk a little bit about, kind of the team aspect when it comes down to it, right? In my opinion, I think that most agents, most team leaders can get by and do $1 million in GCI with a relatively small team. Let's say, themselves and really about 3 agents, 2 to 3 agents on the team is, in my opinion, what it can take. A really solid team of 3, 1 team leader plus 2 agents can do it. But from the team leaders that I know that are doing $1 million in GCI, they usually have 3 or more agents. The more agents you have, obviously the more deals that are getting spread around. And so, that can be good or bad, but, realistically, the ones that I see that are doing things the best at $1 million GCI usually have about 3 other agents, right? Themselves and 3 other agents. Now, in addition to that, you're also going to need transaction management support, and you're probably going to need some kind of an assistant support role as well, just to help you with your day-to-day stuff, marketing, sending out cards, setting up meetings, prospecting, even stuff like that. All right. And so, at $1 million in GCI, you're definitely going to have to start looking into how do I build out this team, right? And so maybe you're already there, maybe you're not. Again, maybe this is all just like down the road, but I wished that somebody would have told me this type of stuff when I had just gotten started in my business, because it would have like at least just kind of like given me something to look forward to, or to like, at least like start projecting the future for as to like what it might even take. Okay. And so even if it's like 500,000, just take these numbers and divide it by 2, but like 500,000 in GCI, that's still actually a pretty doable number for just a single agent with maybe like 1 other agent helping them. But like I say, 1 million in GCI, you're probably at, you plus maybe 2 to 3 other buyer agents. Blake, do you concur with that? What are your thoughts on that? I don't want to jump too far ahead without getting your take on it.
No, I mean, I think that obviously you kind of hit it on the head, and like we're talking on a grand scale of things. So I think if there's any agents, like I think probably the agents that I would most associate with was like first getting into real estate. You kind of learning all of these things. So like you said, kind of I wish somebody would have taken this knowledge and laid it down flat for me. But for for new agents, I think sometimes the best number to hit is one.
That's right.
One, because for me, all I needed was the first house. And once I had the first house, then I was able to start learning all of these things and then really make a plan. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. Because like, I think I a little bit had of a maybe like analysis by paralysis. And I was just wanting, because my previous profession, I wanted to really learn everything there's to learn before I applied it, where I'm like, okay, I'm at like 80% or 70%, and like I'm gonna go out and use it. And then once you start using it, you just fine and sharpen the tool. So for me, I would say like I think those numbers are all spot on, and everybody's numbers are different. And it really comes down to your work-life balance and all of the things that you want to associate with that. So I don't think there's anything that I would say that would contradict you.
Yeah.
Only if you're a brand new agent and you're listening to this call, like, and you haven't sold a house, make your number
one. I agree, 100%.
And once you get that one, then let's talk.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Yeah. I think, for me too, the other reason why, I guess like I wanted to kind of, present this is, if let's say you are beyond the new agent stage and you've started to do some stuff, I only know what I know now because I made so many mistakes trying to attain that number right before, to where like, I was trying to go for 1 million in GCI, and I just thought, oh, I just need more agents. Right. And like, I was getting 9. I had like at one point in time, I had 9 agents, buyer's agents on my team. And I was going further away from hitting my goal, even though I had more agents. And so like, I didn't even know the blueprint. Like I didn't even know what to do. Right. And so I was just trying things. And it's like, now that I see what I see, it's like, I can, hopefully help craft, this, hypothetical situation for somebody that is in this position where maybe they want to go after this at some point, right? Maybe it's not this year, maybe it's 3 years from now, maybe it's 5 years from now, but at least you kind of know the roadmap a little bit, right? So yeah. So anyways, yeah, we, basically like, but absolutely, like what Blake said, if you're brand new, you've never done a deal, the first thing is one, right? You get that first deal under your belt, everything changes. Like I feel, it's like, I see it because I get a lot of new agents that partner with me, and it's so interesting. It's so, I love to see it. Like once an agent closes their first transaction, like everything kind of changes. Like they start asking more questions. Like, I don't know. It's just like, it's so different, right? It becomes their life. And so get to that first transaction. And I promise you, like, if you're struggling right now, just get one under your belt. And I know that sounds, sometimes you might be thinking like, well, that's easier said than done. But, work like heck to get that first transaction under your belt. And it may not get easier right then, but things will start to change for you. But okay. All right. So now let's get into the 4 things that, in my opinion, now that we kind of know what 1 million in GCI looks like, let's get into the 4 things that kind of you have to really hone in on. You have to get really good to even get to that number, right? So in my opinion, the best way to get to 1 million in GCI, number one is you've got to establish a brand. It's very difficult for somebody to hit 1 million in GCI without having a solid brand. And there's different ways that you build your brand, but I know for a fact that when I struggled early on, it was because I never really believed in the power of branding per se. I was much more of like a lead generator. Like, let me just pay for some leads, and I'm not really going to build my brand. I'm just going to work the leads as they come in. It was a very transactional business. And, maybe I could have gotten to $1 million that way, but, I wouldn't have enjoyed it. I definitely would have spent a lot of money to do that because I'm, just investing in the leads all the time, and I have really nothing. And then I'd also just feel like I'm super at the whim of just like what happens in the marketplace. I really wouldn't have built anything that I would have felt comfortable or confident with. And so building that brand, especially if you have long-term aspirations to hit, 1 million or more in GCI in any given year, that's got to be like on the forefront of your mind early on, because it takes a long time to build a brand. I mean, Blake, you're building an amazing brand right now, man. Like, I mean, I see what you're doing. Like, everything on your social media is so like polished and like it looks good. And I know people are coming to recognize you for your brand in your market. And that's only going to help you long term to achieve whatever goals that you want to achieve. And so, maybe this first segment, Blake, if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit about
Sure.
your branding thoughts and, so far what branding has already done for you.
Well, I would say that it like to mirror what you said, it doesn't come quick and it doesn't come easy. It takes thought and it takes consideration. But I would also be maybe slightly hypocritical in that statement to don't overthink it. This is my second brand. So like I kind of grew into where I'm at and I branded myself now based off of my personality, what in my business to stand for and belief in. And, my first branding was not so successful. I chose a Danish term for parenting. And it's called Hygge, Hygge. And it's really hard to pronounce. It's got a long explanation behind it. And then people will call me and be like, "Hey, is this Blake Hygge?" And I was like, "Huh?" They're like, "Oh, well, it says Hygge Homes." And I'm like, it's Hygge and it's a Danish thing." Then I got off into this whole tangent about what it was, right? So I almost went too far into the creative space because I was like, I wanted my brand to be about family and I wanted to involve this term. So then I kind of started to slowly fade away from that. And then I started to really think, what do I want my business to stand for? What do I want it to be about? And what do I want it to show when someone looks at it? And so my wife really challenged me and she was like, "Listen, I need you to come up with something that like I can put on." Jackson agrees. I really want you to put something on a shirt or a koozie or, a sticker that like I can represent everywhere and not say Blake Sammons Real Estate. Not that there's anything wrong with using your name, but for me, I wanted the brand to live on and like I wanted to really kind of grow beyond just Blake Sammons. So I drew this little cross mark with a pineapple in the airport code for Charleston, and it became my brand. And one of the things I really like to do is wear an Aloha shirt to all my closings because it's a fun way to say hello and goodbye, and I'll see you later. And so that was my thing, is to say Aloha at the closings. And it dawned on me, oh my goodness, I should just rebrand myself to be Aloha Charleston. And then I bought 18 more Aloha shirts, and my wife is not happy about that. But I wear Aloha shirts every day. And much like you said, Kyle, people recognize me. So like I'll pull up to, let's say, a brand new listing hits the market, and you know how like they just do overlapping showings and it's open all day long and you pull up and there's agents waiting. Well, like I'll pull up to that house and I'll get out of my car and someone down the street, I can't even tell who it is. And they're like, "Hey, Blake, what's up?" And they recognize me because I'm wearing an Aloha shirt. So it takes time to brand yourself and to really think about what you want your branding to be, what you want it to stand for. And like, I think it should be something that people kind of see and immediately know who it is, but also at the same time, like my shirts, my koozies, my hats, my stickers, they'd say Aloha Charleston. And if I put anything on it, it says AlohaCharleston.com. And then my tagline is to live like you're on vacation. And like, ultimately, that's why we chose to live here, is live like you're on vacation. So for me, it took time to build it and to grow it. And now I just live it and do it. And now I feel like the brand and what the services I provide and what I offer, they kind of all mesh and line up. And like, I try to showcase that on my social media. And like I said before, I think humor is a great way to break down walls. And so I use a lot of humor in my branding, my marketing, and my social media. And I incorporate a lot of dad stuff because like, that's just what we do, what we are. So each of my kids all have little Hawaiian shirts. And like when they go on showings with me, we dress to match. Anyway, so
I love it.
Branding was a long road for me. So
Nice. I love it. Well, it's funny that you'd mentioned that first term, Hugo. I actually just got done all day at IKEA yesterday, so I was reading all sorts of Swedish names, and it just reminded me of that. I was like, "Oh my god!"
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, Yeah, and then the other thing that I thought was funny to point out, just because I know Blake a little, like the story too about the Aloha. But one of the things I learned about Blake is that you don't tell him he can't do something, because then he ends up doing it like 100x, right? Like you gotta share that story about how like somebody was like, you'll never sell X amount of real estate wearing Hawaiian shirts or something.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So I was on a team, and this person who I very much so looked up to and admired was like, you know what, like you'll never sell $1 million house wearing that shirt. And I was just like, I just don't believe that. I just don't believe that to be true. Oh, now you're happy? You're on camera. So I just said, I just don't believe that to be true. And he's like, well, I don't want you to shoot yourself in the foot for the future, because someone might not want to buy $1 million house from you in that shirt. And I'm like, well, that might not be my client.
Yep.
And like, it's not for everybody, but at least I'm being my true self. And so when he told me that you'll never sell $1 million house wearing that shirt, is when I started drawing and designing Aloha Charleston and coming up with the ideas. And since then, I've obtained $1 million listing, and I've got several agencies who with clients who are in the $1 million price point, and so I'm on the right track to success. And so I'll be pumped one day when the listing either closes or we put a house under contract, and I'm able to maybe just send them a quick text.
There you go.
But yeah, I don't like it when people tell me I can't do something, because I just don't believe in that. I mean, there's so many people out there in this world who, like Steve Jobs, like, man wore a black shirt, no collar, and jeans, and like, well, and I'll go one more step, like, and I don't want to compare myself to the stature of these group of people, but like doctors, surgeons, like they wear scrubs to work, and they're not a suit and tie, and they're multimillionaires, so it doesn't matter what you wear. It matters about what's in here, and you gotta let it present itself.
Absolutely. Very cool. I love it. All right. So that's kind of the branding aspect. And I definitely, can't understate how important, branding is to get you to that $1 million in GCI, and just, how much more fun it makes your business, like, makes it more enjoyable to know that like you're building this thing. Like it's just, it like takes a life of its own. So I think that's got to be one of the first things we that you focus on, or not focus, but you start to think about, like, really, like, I went for a very long time in my career without ever even thinking about a brand. And so just don't make that same mistake if I can, if you can. But then the other part of it, and this is going to help you build your brand, is I feel like to get to $1 million in GCI, you also have to have content be a significant part of your brand, right? And, and having a solid content marketing strategy, and knowing what I know now with regards to, SEO, blogging, YouTube, all of that kind of stuff. And then even just where social media plays a part of it all. That I feel like to get to $1 million, not just today, but like, even more into the future, that's only going to get more important, to separate yourself from the rest of, of the field. Right. And, like maybe years ago, you could, get by with just relationships and this type of a thing. And you can still do very well with just a relationship-based business. And you do still have to build relationships with your clients. But I feel like you won't even get the opportunity to build as many relationships if you don't have content out there really kind of, showing your value, positioning you as the expert, staying top of mind in front of people, and then also lead generating for you, on demand. And so, content has got to be a big part of a producer's business who's doing $1 million in GCI. And especially when you think about, like, trust me, I know a lot of agents that make $1 million in GCI and they walk away with, less than, $100,000 in a year. It's like, whereas you could just be an individual agent and make more than that. And you don't want to become one of those agents. And I feel like if that is, your belief as well, then content has got to be that kind of other piece, right, that you're building up. And so, So anyway, so I think, and then as you build out your content, people start like, that's your brand. Like you're going to start to build, and like whether you build content for Aloha Charleston and kind of, under that, whether you build content as your personal brand, either way, like it's more of just like, you need to be seen as like a thought leader. You need to be seen as like an expert. And even if you're not an expert yet, if you're a brand new agent, you're definitely steps ahead and probably miles ahead of a lot of people. So don't underestimate your skills, because we've all, gone to real estate school. You've had to take classes, and when your audience is, buyers and sellers, and maybe it's first time home buyers, I promise you, more than they do, right? Like, as if they have no real estate experience, you've done all this and you have the ability to go out there and learn and teach. You just try and do your best to teach what you do know, right? And you can learn something pretty quickly. It doesn't have to be like monumental, groundbreaking things that you're making content on. It could be the most simplest thing, but you just need to be seen as the person who's giving value and adding back to the marketplace on a consistent basis, and that you're showing up. Half the battle when you create content is literally just showing up consistently. If you can do that, that shows so much to your hopeful client, the person that, you hope to work with, just in the fact that like, oh my gosh, like if nothing else, like this person's consistent, like, I believe in what they say because their actions are backing it up. And so like, and then if you're consistent with doing it, you're eventually going to get good at it. So like, even if in the beginning you're worried like, oh, well, I don't know, like I'm not good at writing, or I'm not good at video, I'm not good at podcasting, like whatever it is that is your medium, or I'm not good at social media, whatever is your medium is for, adding that content. If you feel you're not good at it, just by being consistent, you will eventually get good at it. Right. So, Blake, I don't know if you have anything to chime in with there. You're obviously great at content. You're great at social media, man. Like Blake said, he is fun. He's funny. If you want a funny person to follow, go follow Blake Salmons on social media.
Yeah. So my handle is Aloha Charleston, but yeah, go right ahead. For me, I couldn't agree more. I think it's about putting things out that people want to see, they want to watch, and a lot of people like humorous things. And so, one time I was on a call with a lead, and this person said that they were wanting to list their house, but they're gonna have to wait because they have a cat. That's it. That was it. And so I was like, okay, all right. So when's a good time? So we set a time to call back. But the point of this story is that I took that experience and then I created this character that I call Bill, who has a mullet, and I took my daughter's little stuffed animal cat. And so now I will create these funny reels with Bill, and like Bill will say like there was this really funny voiceover from The Office that was like, how long is this going to take? Is it 1 month or 2 months? Could be 3 months, could be 4 months. And so like I had Bill, saying like, hey, when can we sell this house because of the cat? Like could be 1 month, could be 2 months, could be 3 months. So anyway, I think you have to do what's right for you. And like, there's some agents who go out there and do walkthroughs of houses, and there's some agents who like to do like these are the things you find at showings. And like, again, it's just consistency, because it shows that, the agent is not only working, but doing things, producing content and dropping knowledge. So like you will, pick up tips and tricks and hints and different things from other agents, and you'll find other people on social media and you're like, you know what? I really like what they're doing, except I could tweak it in these 2 or 3 ways and make it very Aloha Charleston or Bill. And like, I could do it in a totally different way and produce some really good content and drop it there. So consistency is key. I think you have to be very authentic. And for me, it's humor. And I think the other thing to get across is really this is how you grow beyond your sphere. So like the other day, I had a very real situation. A contract was due by 9 a.m. and I have all of my kids here at the house, and I'm like, you know what? We have to pause everything. So like, we're about to head to daycare. I got to write this contract. So instead of me making content later, I just popped my phone up real quick, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to record what's happening here at this very table right here. So I've got 2 kids sitting here. I've got my man Jackson in the high chair, and I'm typing this offer. And so when I was recording it, I was like, it'd be really funny is if I took my daughter's Play laptop and I was typing on this Fisher Price laptop. And so I made this reel on that. So the reason I bring that up is because I put it out there and got over like, I don't know, 3,000 views, but somebody messaged me and they said, hey, I'm looking for a house. And I was like, oh, okay, sounds great. We went through the process, a lot of pleasantries exchanged. We had a meeting. She signed an agency and she's looking for a $400,000 house in North Charleston, all because I recorded myself doing something in the act that was very authentic with my man Jackson, who's legitimately standing on top of a robot vacuum right now. Like, I was just doing the things, doing the real estate things in real life and producing something along the way. And it not only did I go under contract with that other house, but now I've picked up a new lead who's going to be purchasing in the spring. So
that's awesome. I love it. I love it. Well, very cool. So now let's jump into kind of the next piece of this. And one of the other things that I don't know if I mentioned it, but the idea behind this video too, as far as like getting to 1 million in GCI, is how to do it with literally like zero budget, right? Like, so like not having to like spend a bunch of money. It's I mean, because like that's my real belief is that like I think so many agents sometimes we're just like chasing after these milestones just to like hit something, but like I know agents that are willing to spend $800,000, $900,000 to hit 1 million in GCI. It's like, no, you're just like that. Like, that's not what you want. Like, at least long-term, like it's very, like we talked about, you want to have a good balance, right? And still have a life, like, so you don't get burnt out. And you want to build something that's sustainable. And so like all of these ideas that we're talking about, branding, content, these are all things that aren't going to break the bank. Like, I mean, they may not have zero, but you might have to do something, right, to spend some money. But most of the stuff is like things that like just depending on how much you can invest in doing it yourself, like it could be free, right? Like, we're not talking about going out there and spending a bunch of money. So the next thing then along that line is, of course, I mean, we can't talk about building a relationship based business, real estate sales, without talking about how to engage your audience, engage your database, and what you should be doing with those people to get more business from them, right, long term. Because I know I made this mistake again. There's another bad mistake of mine, because I was building a very transactional based business early on. I undervalued the the value of relationships, and not to say that like I wouldn't do anything, but I just didn't place the right amount of importance on my database and what it could do for me long term, right? I overvalued the one transaction, like the transaction that I got right off the bat from the person, and undervalued the lifetime value of that potential transaction, right? And when you start to see, like, now I've been this doing real estate for 15 years now, since '08. I mean, it's crazy to think that. Like, people are like, did you get started when you were 7? It's like, no, I got started when I was 21. But I mean, I've been in the business long enough now to realize that literally that first transaction is probably the least valuable thing in the whole experience, the lifetime of a customer, right? So like I was way over focused on that and way under focused on like what could happen beyond that. And for the agents that are going to get to 1 million in GCI, usually the ones that, again, that I know, that that I'm friends with, that are partners of mine, like they're the opposite, right? They're all in on like providing a experience long term for people. And just that first transaction is just like kind of the tip of the iceberg. And so I think that's the other thing that's got to be said, is that like you have a plan in place, right, written down, and then it's also just something you're actively thinking about, constantly trying to build, to be able to get you to that $1 million in GCI, or just to whatever, even 500,000 or 200,000. It's got to be something that you plan for and that you execute on at a very high level. So I don't know, Blake, what's your thoughts on that?
So I had an agent who I would definitely say is I looked up to very much. So I wouldn't necessarily say a mentor, but like I looked up to him and I kind of emulated a lot of things that he did. And one of the things he said to me was like, listen, like you just need to stay in touch with all of your people, just check in and like make sure that you are the best possible friend that you can be with all of your friends and all of your contacts. And like you don't have to do much more beyond that. And if you're doing it in a genuine, authentic way, not like, hey, this is Blake Salmons just calling to check in. By the way, do you know anybody who's going to sell a house? No? Okay, thanks, bye. Like, if you do something like that, then you're not going to get the same type of reciprocal conversation from your friends, and like then it's going to come across very salesy. So like for me, I took that mentality and I was like, you know what? I'm going to start, just being more attentive to people's birthdays, to different life goals, events, and I'm going to make sure that I'm setting up coffees or grabbing a beer or lunch or brunch or like just a quick pop by, and really focus on the people who are in my sphere. And then the people who I have sold houses to, like the ones, like when you strive to do something different and be very authentic in your approach and delivery, you stay in touch with them beyond that. So like just to hammer that point home, like the second house I ever sold, I sold this young couple a house, and they were kind of talking about some of the bedrooms for potentially a baby someday. I'm so glad to say that I just sent them a baby gift, and they just brought home a little baby girl like 4 weeks ago. And so like they're sending out birth announcements and wanted to make sure they had my address. So like we stay in touch, we stay involved, and like, there's just a level of authenticity there that like, if anything did ever come in a real estate transaction, hopefully I'd be the person that they would think of off the first thought. But if I'm just doing what I'm doing because it makes me happy, then it's a win-win situation. So for me, I think being the friend that you aspire to be to all of your people, and just trying to, obviously you can't just call everybody in your phone book in one day, because I feel like there's people who do like they'll call 100 people in a day, like if you do that, how are you going to keep that trend up? So don't have to make it a big deal or a big thing. Call 4 of your friends one time, like each day, like 4 people, and then set up a beer, set up a coffee, set up a lunch, like just chat over the phone, call me on your way home, call me at work, and just catch up with them. And like that is truly, in my opinion, how you really build a larger database over time, and people associate or people find a lot of comfort in it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's relationships, and he or she who holds the most relationships, with potential buyers and sellers is typically the one that is going to be one of the most productive agents in their market, right? Like if you hold a lot of active, relationships, you tend to do very well, right? And, I mean, obviously there's always those that, just have a ton of money to invest. They spend money on Zillow and, all these different types of things, and they can do fine. But I really feel like to build a I don't know, like a worthwhile, really good real estate business, like the relationship side of it has got to be part of it. It's got to be a big part of it. And so, is anything breaking at your house?
Oh, that's Jackson making a phone call on the Fisher Price phone. He's calling a lead that I just got a few minutes ago.
Blake's house is crumbling behind him as he's on this Zoom video with me. I love it. But no, I mean, it's the same too.
Can I add something in onto what you're saying there, Kyle?
Yeah.
I think to just do a slight like one up there is like a lot of agents take this same mentality and do the same thing that we're saying to do. So it's important to do it slightly differently from the next person. Like everybody gives some gear from your business, shirts, hats, koozies, things like that. So like, what can you do that's different? And so like, just to hammer this point home, like when I close a house, I give a pineapple to everybody that I close a house to, because it's 1, on brand, pineapple in my logo. 2, it's location specific. It is the symbol for Charleston. And number 3, it's the symbol for hospitality. Number 4, they're delicious. So like I'm giving a valuable thing. Like who is going to forget the realtor who gave them a pineapple?
Exactly.
Anyway, sorry. So yeah, you have to do those things, but you have to just tweak it.
Yep. For sure. Yeah. I mean, that's where, even for me, like I would do like what Blake said, where it's like, I have my, my active kind of like just, general sphere of influence, right? My database. And I had, X, Y, and Z that I would do with just anybody that's in my database. But then the other thing that I think is, and this is where kind of, this will separate a lot of things too, is when you also need to, you do have to kind of top grade your database. Like have a look at it. Cause like one of the things that, I didn't do this until probably the last like 5 years now, is that I looked at my database and I realized that like, it's kind of that, Pareto principle where it's like, 90-10, like yes, everybody is important, and yes, I want to provide X, Y, and Z to everybody, because you don't know who will become let's say your top A clients or top A referrers. But like my top referrer, like one client of mine, in 4 years referred me 15 sales that I can actually like track back to this person, right? Like they either did multiple deals themselves, which they did, or they also referred people who directly said, yes, this person referred me business. And if you think about that, I mean, that's over $100,000, like with my average price point, that one client brought into me over the course of 4 years. And and we all have those people in our database, and like those people, like that person, and then I probably had about, I'd say 9 people that were in that are in my kind of top A sphere of influence. Like they brought in a lot of business to me, and I treated them very, very nicely, right? Like, and I always thought about that. And so like, being strategic, not just, yes, you should have something, that goes out to everybody, but also think strategic too. And like, if I can step it up for these people or something like that, I mean, that's important too, because there's just some people, they're either more connected, they just think about opportunities. And if you can be on those people's good sides, like really good things can happen in your business. So that's the other part of it, when it comes to just like treating, relationships and people that are in your space, is, somewhat being strategic about it also, right? Like just having a game plan for that. And so, all right, so let's move on to the last topic here, which number 4 is going to be kind of the scalability topic. So we talked a little bit about this early on, which is like, how do you even get to $1 million in GCI? Well, you're going to have to, form some kind of a team to get there, in my opinion. I mean, unless you're an agent watching this, chime in if you've hit $1 million GCI by yourself. I'd be super impressed, especially if your average sales price is below $1 million. But for the most part, you're going to have some leverage, some team. And this is where a lot of times agents get it wrong, right? When you're building out a team, and you're trying to, it might be the first time that you've ever had like, the opportunity, which it is an opportunity to get to work with other people. They don't have to work with you, right? Like, and so, so it's an opportunity, but you got to build it the right way. And so this might be the first time that maybe you're like working on your leadership skills. Maybe it's the first time that you're having to get creative, beyond just your own self. Sometimes this might be the first time where you have to let go a little bit, right? And like that can be hard for a lot of people to let go of things because they want it to, I do it best, right? But if you're going to build this out, you're going to have to work on those things, right? Which is, all boils down into like leverage and scale. And so, and again, but then having kind of the forethought to think about, like when I was building, my team, when I still have a team, it's just a little bit different now how I have it built. But when I was building like my sales team, like local in San Antonio, one of the things that I kind of undervalued, which you can't make this mistake if you want to be firing on all cylinders, is I undervalued like the work ethic or what these agents can bring to the table themselves. And I only focused on like, what can I provide to them that they can then in turn do for me, right? And so, I know now that that's, obviously not the right thing to do, because once I started to let go a little bit and say like, hey, just kind of almost like that, you teach a person to fish, right? Versus, that whole aspect. Like once I started to do that, and I started to show my team how to do things, and still but I mean, I was still, supplementing, and especially like in the early stages, like kind of helping them get going. But the more I started to allow my team to, bring things in on their own, that certainly helped me to knock out a bunch more transactions, right? And it makes the agents feel good. It just makes the environment so much better. But I really feel like, especially like I said, it's not going to take a ton to get to $1 million in GCI. Let's say it's 3 agents. You're going to have to really pour into those agents, but then you're also going to have to set the right expectations that like, hey, this is what I'm going to do, and this is what I bring to the table. but these are going to be my expectations of you as an agent, coming in. Like, I expect you to also bring some stuff to the table. So that way, number one, it takes the pressure off of you. Because if you come in and let's say you're getting an agent and you get them to join your team with improper expectations of, hey, I'm just going to feed you leads and this and that, you don't really set them up by saying like, I'm going to show you how to do some stuff as well. And I expect long term that you would eventually bring in some stuff on your own. If you don't have those right expectations, then it's really difficult like to be enjoying the business long term, because then you go to, if the leads start to slow down or if they're not good or whatever it is, you feel so responsible. And so for you to get to that million in GCI, the agents that I know that actively have teams, that's a big part of what they're doing with their agents, is they're having their agents come to the table with certain things. And so I think that's another source. Let's say again, 120 transactions. If you break that up amongst, you and 3 other agents, that's basically, 4 agents total. That would be 30 transactions a piece, which, every agent can and should be able to do 30 transactions at some point. Maybe not the first year. I mean, I know agents that do, but I don't want to, seem like, oh, that's so easy. It's not, but you definitely can get to the point where you're doing it. And so if you have a team firing on all cylinders, you can do 120 transactions with 4 agents. And out of those 30 transactions, like what if let's say you have your content marketing, up, and, you're getting leads from YouTube and, and just from your social media, you also are getting a lot of referrals and your team is closing. But let's say those 3 agents, you show them how to get 10 deals, on their own, from their own sphere of influence, which I promise you as a team leader, you can teach agents how to do that. That's 30 transactions right there that, that come in off your one. That's a quarter of all of your transactions that you might have to do. And that's a huge chunk. That's a big help once you start to do that, right? Because, getting to 120 transactions all on your own merit is very difficult. But it's much more possible, and you'll get more buy-in once you actually start to leverage your team the proper way, which is, giving them the ability to kind of shine as well. So, Blake, I know you were a part of a team. Maybe share some light on that side of it, what your thoughts are there.
Yeah, so I obviously I don't have my own team, but I can speak on the behalf of being on a team. I can vividly remember at one point in time when I said I went to the I went to the team leader and I said, listen, I'd like to get some additional guidance and mentorship and want to learn and kind of fine tune my craft and really kind of grow. And I said, I'd really like to kind of be paired with the number 1 agent on the team. And that way I can go on some appointments with them and I'll not say a word. I'll just take some notes, so I won't like overstep my bounds. And I was met with a resounding no. I was so surprised because I was like, I'm willing to give some of my time to do that. But ultimately what I learned is that like they didn't want me to spend their time with me to learn versus I could be making calls. So like, I guess I going back to what you were saying, like making another fisherman, I was looking to get groomed as another fisherman, but they just really wanted another fish. So for me, it was kind of going back to where the value was in the team. And it started to lose value almost on a daily basis because I was not getting what I was promised, which was mentorship, guidance, and education, and someone kind of putting me under their wing, which is what the team leader met with me and said, this is what we will give. And it was a quick bait and switch, and I was given somebody to kind of give me some training. But ultimately, I think what I took away from it was that like, you have to kind of always sharpen the tool, and you have to strive for those moments to really kind of make yourself better. And hopefully the team leader, and if you are a team leader or you're thinking of starting a team here, I would say strive to make every one of your people another fisherman, because they could be potentially helping guide another agent who could be yet another fisherman. And then the cycle goes on and on and on. So if you're always leading with, like I have a sticky note on my desk that says value first. If you're always leading with value first to all of your people, then they're leading with value first to their clients and future, realtors who are going to be working on your team. So grow with value first, grow with education in mind and mentorship, because all of those people want to grow. They want what the person at the top of the team has. And so you have to show them a strategy, a way to obtain some of these fantastic goals. And, hopefully they have that intrinsic motivation, but sometimes it takes an extrinsic motivation by saying, like, you might give them a little bit more commission if they, hit a certain goal, hit a, number of houses, GCI. I mean, it could be so many different things, but by showing that, I feel like it shows transparency and being genuine. So
Yep.
anyway,
Yeah, I
my
mean,
thoughts.
going back to that, to that team that that you're talking about, and like not to bash on any team leaders, like I learned this from experience myself too, is that like number one, I think when you are talking about trying to teach somebody or to become a productive team member, the one thing that comes up in a lot of team leaders' minds is it's scarcity versus abundance mindset, right? Like, well, if I teach this person to be really good, well, then they're going to be good on their own and they can leave me, right? I definitely struggled with that, right? And like wanting to be in control, that like, oh, well, if I don't, then they need me for everything and they'll never leave. When in actuality, as you experienced, they can leave just as easily, even if they, you think that they need you, right? So like you're better off just number one, just always trying to grow as a team leader, as a person, personal development, because people want to be around people who are growing, right? Like, and so like, even if you, Blake Salmons, let's say you were on, my actual sales team here and you were growing, well, if I'm also growing and I can help you keep, leveling up, then you're still not going to leave, even though you're growing. I just, as a team leader, need to think of ways that we get to win together, which that's part of the battle of growing out this team, is that you do have to be creative, right? Like it's not just a static thing, like nothing stays the same forever. So you always have to be looking for ways where you're rewarding talent on your team and encouraging growth from your team. And but anyways, but at the end of the day, all of that is very worth it if you're doing it the right way, because you are building leverage, you're building opportunity. Eventually you can build a business where you can step out and maybe somebody can take over. Those are all the things that are possible, which in my opinion now, kind of being on the other side of that now, where it's like I've got the leverage, I've got all of that, I see how amazing it is to live a life like that. I would do anything in my ability to try and do that. And so but I know in the beginning it is scary, like, oh, like, shoot, it's going to be a lot of work, like I got to train this person and then they can leave me. And but that has to be a part of your plan, if unless you just want to constantly just sell in 30, 40, 50 homes a year, which, and I don't knock that, like that. Trust me, if that is what you want to do, you should do it. That is also a very good living. It will make you kind of be on this hamster wheel for a long time, like unless you can be really disciplined with your savings and invest in like other things and rental properties and stuff. But if you want to build a big real estate business, you've got to become a very skilled leader, someone who brings opportunity to a big group of people. So I don't know. I'll let you get the final word, Blake, and then we'll shut things down.
My dad always told me, like, when you go into a room, always consider yourself to be the thermostat. You want to walk into a room and have a positive change on the temperature of that room, and never be a thermometer. And it always was like such a strange analogy to me, but now kind of in full circle, thinking back to that, like, you really need to have a positive effect on the team that you're growing, so that way they can go out and preach how positive this team is, and how great it is. And then your team will grow through authenticity and value first. So I think if I am taking the words of Joe Salmons, like, being a thermostat is definitely like the way to win, and make sure that you're constantly having a positive effect on the temperature of the room that you're in, and making sure that, like, when you have an opportunity to grow one agent, that agent, if you help them grow, yeah, it's going to take time. It's like at some points in time, it's almost like training. You're investing time in that person, so that when that value grows there, then it will multiply down the road. So I think that is the thing to do. So
Love
Make
it. I
sure to look
love
for the
that, man.
small
I
things.
hadn't heard that before. I love that. Be the thermostat. That's so good, man.
Be
Uh,
the thermostat.
I love it, man. Well, good stuff. Well, Blake, dude, thank you so much for jumping in. I know you had a crazy day and you still made it happen. You could have very
Yep.
easily said, dude, this came up and I can't make it, but you still jumped on. That's what I love about you, Blake. I love being your partner, man. And I know you got
Same.
a lot of great things ahead. I know we're going to be seeing you on these calls a lot more frequently, hopefully as
Sure.
well. I think you
Yeah.
really bring a very interesting dynamic to the call. And I know a lot of people have gotten a lot of good value out of you being here. So thank you so much,
Good.
Blake.
My
And
pleasure. Maybe next time I'll let Bill join me here with this.
yeah,
So.
yeah. Hey, bring Bill next time, please. And but yeah, everybody, thank you guys for jumping on this call. It was good to see everybody again here today. I know it's been a little while since I've been on the live streams, but these will be now happening again every Tuesday, same time, 11 a.m. Central, every single Tuesday. And hopefully we'll see you, next week. Talk to you later, everybody. Have an amazing week and go sell some homes. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.